Just to introduce myself for people that don't know me, my name's Kimberly Modesitt. I own Native Life Landscaping. We are a unique niche business here in Indian River County. We specialize in custom landscape designs and installs. We don't touch grass, we don't mow grass, we don't do anything with grass unless I absolutely have to install grass as part of a design, but I hate grass. And it's nothing personal, it's just my motto for my company is actually grass is a temporary excuse for more gardens, which I truly believe. You can get much more beauty with plants than you can with grass and eliminate all the problems with chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers that you need on grass on a continual basis. I would much rather look at this than I would a patch of grass. Saying that, however, it is usually nice to put a little bit of grass to balance what you're doing in the garden, just to have a viewpoint up to it. So, where I'm going to start today, this side of the room, we're going to look at it briefly, and then we're going to ignore it completely. This is the generic, typical stuff that you get from every other landscape business out there. Let me rephrase that. Almost every other landscape business out there. This is the normal stuff that people have in their back pocket. It's called cookie cutter landscape design. And it's the old-fashioned, tall at the back, mid plants in the middle, a little bit lower in the front, and then the lowest in the front of that. Nothing wrong with this if this is your jam. Great, I will put it in if that's what you specifically asked me to do, but I like to show people when I meet them, this is another option of what you could do instead. This is way more beautiful in terms of texture and contrast and color and design than this is. Your yard is going to be way different from your neighbor's yard, from anybody else's yard on the street. And one of the things that we specialize in is that every single person that I work with, their designs, their installs are different from every other person. So even if I work with your neighbor right next to you, your properties are not going to look the same at all. You may have some of the same plant material, but they'll be in different groupings, they'll be in different places because every yard is different, just like every person's different. So we are now going to ignore all this. That's not saying that some of these plants aren't really, really nice. I'm going to show you some things as well with this. Not only is this the typical planting combination, it's also the typical spacing for plants when you get them put in. For some reason, people think that the ideal way of planting is to give you instant impact planting. There are 3 reasons why we don't want to do that. And if you have any kind of say in your planting at all, please speak up. Because 1, you're being charged 3 times the amount of money that you actually need to be charged for your landscape design. 2, in the future, it's going to cause a nightmare in maintenance issues. Everywhere that these plants are touching, and they're touching back here, it's going to die out in the middle. And the 3rd reason is when you plant things this close, there's no room for air to move around the plant. Actually, I lied, there's 4 reasons. But there's no room for the air to move around the plant, and it's going to cause problems with pests and diseases. It's just going to be a nightmare for an additional maintenance. And the 4th reason is trying to maintain this is ridiculous. It's absolutely nightmarishly dumb, and then everything gets cut into a hedge. They come in with their hedge shears and they cut it in a box, they cut it in a line, and it ruins the actual beauty of the plant. Okay? This is a boricola. This is the straight green species, and this is what you typically see as a foundation planting right along the sides of your house or the front of your house. Somebody tell me how big this actually gets. 15 to 20 feet tall by wide. This is because they put this in because this is easily accessible. You can go to any landscape garden center and find it, and people look at it and think, oh, I've seen that. That's what I should be putting in my yard. This is the one that you actually want to get if you're doing a foundation planting or trying to put in a hedgerow. This is also an arboricola, but the cultivar is called Lucerne. Lucerne is a dwarf version of that. This grows a lot slower. The max height on it can be kept easily 3 to 4 feet versus 15 to 20 feet. It's a lot smaller texture, it's a lot smaller density, but still gives you the same texture if you like the arboricolas. So that's one thing I wanted to point out. I'm going to jump over here to my designs. I specialize also in using unique and different plant material. I like to use the basic common stuff as well, but I use them in different groupings, but I also like to put in things that people aren't aware of. Busy Bee is fantastic because they bring in some of those unique and more difficult to find plant material. 9 times out of 10, a lot of people walk past it because they don't know what it is. They haven't seen it in the gardens before. So we're going to talk about all this lovely stuff here in a minute. I love the pygmy date palms. I also hate the pygmy date palms. They are beautiful, but they are treacherous because they have those spikes on them that will give you new piercings in places that you didn't really want piercings. When you prune these, I know this isn't a pruning seminar, but I also want to bring this to your attention. With any palm tree, please, please, please do not cut off any palm fronds on it until they're almost completely yellow or brown. The reason for that is because palm trees feed off the lowest ring of palm leaves or palm fronds. If you cut those off when they're green, they're instantly going to start feeding off the next ring, and those are going to start turning yellow and brown. And when your landscapers come in and they cut it, they do the hate relationship. They cut it up like this. This is called hurricane pruning. That is the worst thing you can do for your palm trees. It causes a condition called pencil topping, and pencil topping is where the center of the crown starts to grow like this. And what will eventually happen is the center of your palm tree will weaken and rot off and die. Yes, ma'am. That's a pygmy date palm, Robellini, pygmy, Pygmy. These are very slow growing. That's why they're commonly used in the landscape. They've got a beautiful dark green texture. The other thing I want to caution you on, when these are being planted, pull them away from your house. Look up at where your eaves and your soffits are. If they've placed that directly underneath this plant is eventually going to get 12 to 15 feet tall. What's going to happen to your roof at that point in time? What's going to happen to your gutters at that point in time? We can't. There's not even any exactly. We cannot prune this at all to reduce the height of it. So now you're going to have to remove the plant or suffer damage on your roof. So when you're having a landscaper come in, be active, be involved in your landscape, if it's not me, and make sure they pull things out away from your house. There should be at least 1 foot, 18 inches of room behind the ultimate size of your plant and your house to allow you access for any painting, any touch-ups, putting hurricane shutters up, any of that kind of thing. I'm going to take questions at the end just so I can get through my babble. Sorry, you can push that out of the way. So just be careful because grasses have sharp edges and I don't want to catch it in your eye. Okay. Arecas. Everybody is familiar with areca palms. I like using them, but one of the common mistakes is, and I don't have multiples here, but one of the common mistakes is people plant them this far apart from each other. Areca palms, minimum, the bottom of them get about this wide, 4 feet. And then at the top, they spread out 6 to 8 feet. Why would you plant them this far apart? And I know what they're doing. They're giving you instant impact landscaping, instant impact screening. Within a year of planting areca palms, you're going to have beautiful growth on it. It's going to give you your screening on it. You just have to be patient. Go out and love your gardens. Go out and enjoy them. Go out and talk to them. Give them the time they need to grow in. So one of the most important takeaways that I want you to have from this is allow for planting of the plants to let them grow. I'm not asking you to know the ultimate size of them. Hopefully your landscapers do. But if you want to be aware of your plant material before it gets put in, when you get that list, hopefully from the landscaper, do a little bit of research. See what the ultimate size is. If it says that the ultimate size is 3 to 5 foot, we usually take the middle and 4 foot spread on them. Make sure from the center of that plant to the center of the next plant is 4 feet. And then you also have to take into account whatever this plant is over here. If this has got a center of 3 feet, then you need to take 2 feet from this one, 1.5 feet from this one, and leave that space. You should have gaps in your garden when it's installed. You should be able to see through the plants when it's installed, because that means these guys are all happy. They're all thanking you and saying, I have room to grow. I am not going to have problems in the future if I'm planted properly. I want to bring your attention to this palm. This is a bottle palm. They're beautiful. They're gorgeous. Do not plant it directly under your eaves, which I see it all the time. The base on them get huge. They get tall. Yes, they're relatively slow growing, but you can't do anything to control this. There is another palm that looks kind of similar to that. The new growth comes out red like that. It's called a flamethrower. They're amazing. There's also a buccaneer palm, which is a native palm that I like to sprinkle into my designs every once in a while because it's a native, it's slow growing, it's self-booting. Maximum height is 10 to 12 feet. Maximum width is 6 to 8 feet, 8 to 10 maybe if it's really, really happy. They're gorgeous. They are underused and they're actually on the endangered species list. They don't self-seed, which means you're not going to have a problem with them invading your garden and dropping all the things. And they're so slow growing that you can put them near a pool screen, not right on a pool screen, but you can put it near a pool screen and have that beauty of a smaller palm. Okay, it's called a buccaneer palm, just like the Tampa Buccaneers. Let's talk about some accent plants. I love this guy. He is called a false he. It's called a false agave. It's called a false agave, A-G-A-V-E. They are absolutely gorgeous, used as an architectural plant, which means that you don't typically want to put groupings of these together because then you're losing the beauty of them. You want it to be your eye catcher, something that you're directing your eye to in the garden, and then the plant material you put around it pulls your eye through the rest of the garden. You have to be careful. Be careful. These have sharp spikes on them. Okay. Especially with your eyes. They have sharp spikes on the ends of them. So when you're pruning in your garden, you accidentally back up against them. Just be careful. It's a little interesting. Those get 5 feet wide, will ultimately get 4 to 5 feet tall. Well worth it. This is a lot tighter, closer together than I would plant, but I wanted to show you some groupings of plants that I use together. You definitely want to give this room without having plants crowded up around it, because then again, you lose the beauty on it. This plant here is called an agapanthus. That's the botanical name. The common name is lily of the Nile. They are beautiful. I love the strap-like leaves on them, but the most beautiful thing about them, twice a year you get flowers that sit up about this tall above them, and they're a spherical flower that ranges in color from white to light blue to darker purple, depending on the species that you get, or the cultivar that you get. Lily of the Nile. Shade or sun? It will take full sun to partial shade. I've pushed them deeper in the shade, but you're going to lose the flower. So that if you don't mind losing that, they will still sporadically flower in deeper shade, but you're going to get more of the leaf texture, which is fine. I like to pair them with Blue Days or Blew My Mind. They're the same. So Blew My Mind is the newer cultivar of Blue Days. It blooms more prolifically. It has a darker, more intense bloom, and the flowers tend to last a little bit longer, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with Blue Days itself. These two together are stunning. In fact, if you do a mass planting of these in anywhere from 5, 7, 9 plants spaced out 18 inches apart, and then put one of these in the center or near it, it offsets the color of the flower and puts the focus on this plant, on the lily of the Nile. I know I've heard people saying, what is that? This is one of my favorite plants. This is called a tibicina. I really don't know what the common name is on it. It's called a tibicina. Tibouchina. This will only get about 2.5 to 3 feet tall by wide, and you can tell the color is absolutely stunning. It is so different from other plants. You can use it as a single specimen plant, or you can use it as a mass planting. There are so many benefits to this. It blooms heavily this time of the year, but it has fall color on it. These are brand new plants that were just brought in. If you saw some that have been planted in the garden, the leaves actually turn that gorgeous fall color, the reds and the oranges. It's beautiful. Is it the type of tibicina? It is. It's not one that's going to get tall. 2.5 feet tall by, or 2.5 to 3 feet tall by wide. And you can also keep it controlled. So if you want it in a space where you don't have that much room, once a year, if you do that rejuvenation pruning on it, then you can keep it controlled. Okay. Full sun to part shade. It does not like full shade. If you put it in full shade, it is not going to give you any flower, and it'll get leggy. It's not going to be pretty for you. It can. Yep. They need regular moisture. It does not like dry dry conditions. It also does not like wet feet. It'll tolerate a little bit of wet feet, like if we get the rains like we have been, but make sure you're not planting it in solid clay, which we do have pockets of solid clay in Florida. Give it good drainage. If you do have solid clay on your property or heavier soils, definitely lighten it up. Get something with a perlite in it, or a lot of people use peat moss, which is okay because this is actually an acid-loving plant, so peat moss is good. Peat moss you want to be careful of because you don't want to mix that in with every plant because it is an acid. Peat is acid. If you put acid soil on an alkaline plant, you're going to cause problems with the plant. So you can definitely use something with a perlite mixture in it. Potting soil with that perlite in it will work. Yes, sir.
How deep do you modify the soil?
Say it again.
How deep do you modify the soil?
I usually go twice as wide as the root ball. I don't usually modify underneath it because you don't want it to sink. So it's better to go wider. The roots are really not going to grow down. They're going to grow out. Okay?
Salt out roots?
No. Minor, but definitely not beachside. If you don't have direct spray of the salt, then it's fine, as long as there's some kind of protection. Yeah, yeah, it should be fine. Again, with that once a year pruning, as long as it's, my brain's going like 1,000 miles a minute. As long as you don't have a well system that pulls, like your irrigation system pulls from a well, you want to not plant those. Because when you have an irrigation system that's on a well where you have salt water, it's actually pulling a high content of salt. If you have an irrigation system that pulls from city water, then you're fine. Okay. You can always get it tested because it'll tell you. This is another plant that I love. This is a shrimp plant, but this is the red shrimp plant. The yellow shrimp plant is gorgeous too, but the red one is a lot harder to find. And they're just stunning. They're open habit. They just kind of flop over and they just have these really cool flowers on them. Butterfly attractors, hummingbird attractors. They will get about 2 feet tall by about the same wide. Again, once a year you cut them back hard so they grow back nice and full and bushy. Or you can leave them. If you like that more open floppy habit, you can leave them too. It's not going to hurt them. Coleus. Coleus is used as an annual, but here in Florida is actually a perennial. I like mixing the colors, as you can see there. I'll lift them up, sorry. I like mixing the colors together just because it's so much more interesting. And when you plant them, stagger plant them, which means that you plant them in a pyramid or a triangle, not a pyramid because that would be three-dimensional, in a triangle instead of a straight line. It just gives more dimension and depth and beauty to your garden. Once a year, you can cut them back hard. When they start to flower, you want to pinch those flowers off because that'll stunt their growth and stop them from getting all leggy and floppy. This pairing here, love, love, love. It's the coleus and this is the cranberry hibiscus. And the best thing about this plant is it's edible. The leaves on it, you can mix them in a salad and they are amazing. And you'll have to talk to Ben about special ordering them because I already claimed the 4 that were out there. I've been waiting, sorry. Sorry. And I also like pairing it with the tea plants, cordylines. This color combination is incredible. With cordylines or tea plants, you are not supposed to plant them at the front of your garden because they are going to get leggy. They lose all their lower leaves. There's only one version or one cultivar of the cordylines that keep their leaves fairly low, and that's the Black Magic. But these, they get tall and leggy, and that's okay. They're meant to be a plant that you use towards the back, and then you hide plant other things in the front to hide their legs. They're a little bit shy about their legs, so we want to keep them covered for them. The Asian snow is a relatively new introduction to the market, but this flowers pretty much all year. Whoa, hello. Thanks. This flowers pretty much all year round. It is gorgeous. It only gets about 2 feet tall by wide. It doesn't have any sun, unfortunately, but it can be put full shade to full sun. When you push it into the full shade, it gets a little bit less flowers on it, but it creates the illusion of dappled light. So if you don't have any light coming through, it makes you think and tricks your brain into thinking, hey, there's spots of light in there. It's beautiful as a mass planting. Asian snow. Yes. Yes, you can.
try and make it through past the agave.
Thank you. Oh, come on. I have faith in you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to some of these more interesting plants, and I pulled them in here specifically so you could see different types and what we can use. This is a Muscienda, and I have this one and the red one here. There's also a salmon colored one or a pinkish colored one. They are so underused. It kind of looks like a poinsettia, kind of. They're gorgeous, full sun, light shade. They won't do well. They will not flower in the shade, but they're gorgeous. Again, you can use them as a specimen plant, plant one by itself. They're going to get big. There is one that's supposedly a little bit more dwarf, but I'm not that familiar with them. I think they all get big. And then there's one that gets full size. In fact, I think the white one's a little bit more dwarf and the red one's more, gets a little bit bigger. So 4 to 6 feet tall by wide, but you can keep it controlled. You can keep it to 3.5 to 4 feet with pruning. The most important thing with pruning is don't over prune it. Don't have your landscapers come in on a weekly basis or every 2 weeks and come in and cut everything down because you're losing your flowers. You're also causing problems where they start to create sucker growth on the ends of the plants and it just loses the beauty of it. Let it grow. Let it enjoy itself in your garden because you're going to get a lot more satisfaction from your plants than you are of constantly pruning them. This is, how many are from the north? I am too, that's why I'm raising my hand. So you all know hydrangeas, right? You come down here and you want hydrangeas in your garden, they are not going to grow. Sorry, they're just not. You'll have them, you can buy them around Easter time, whatever. They look beautiful, whatever. You can keep them in pots. Yes, you can baby them in pots. They're just not going to grow. This is your alternative to hydrangeas. I don't know if you can all see it. That's the flower. They are stunning. It's a mid to larger size shrub, but you can keep it to about 4 to 5 feet wide, but ultimately you get about 6 to 8 feet tall by wide. It's gorgeous. It's called a tropical hydrangea. Dombea is the proper name, but tropical hydrangea is what it's commonly known as. Silver buttonwood. I love these. These are a native. I've actually recently created a silver, blue, and white garden, and it was just amazing. You can keep them more shrub-like, or you can train them up into a tree. You definitely want them towards the back. They're not a front of garden plant. I have seen people put them in as the front hedge line. It looks god-awful. I'm sorry, it does. But they are a stunning plant. The one thing you do need to be aware of is that it does get black sooty mold. Just leave it. It's Florida. When that humidity comes in once a year, it is going to get that black sooty mold. It takes care of itself. So you don't need to come in with pesticides and spray them all down. Just let it do its thing. It'll drop its leaves, then it'll flush back out again. This one is also one of my favorites, and it's also very underused. It's called Clerodendron Music Notes. You can just start to see it coming into flower now. As it opens up, it literally looks like a music note. Then these open up and the flowers hang down and they look like white stars. They're so pretty and they flower on the tops and the sides of the plant. Underused, definitely well worth putting in your garden. It will take full sun to pretty heavy shade. Again, you're going to lose some of the flowers, but it's well worth using in your garden. And it's got a medium texture to it. So I usually keep them about 3 to 5 feet. Again, with pruning. This is another underused. I'm starting to see it more used in the garden. It's a blue butterfly bush. You can see the flowers on them. They flower prolifically this time of the year, usually around end of summer through the fall. They flower a lot, and then you'll sporadically get flowers after that. They're just so pretty. The butterflies love them, hence the name. It's not buddleia, no. So you will find out in the garden center there are buddleias, which is the northern butterfly bush. I have not had much success with them down here. I have tried them in multiple locations. Down here, they tend to be a short-lived perennial instead of a long-lived shrub that we get up north. But they're definitely worth the texture, but they take more babying. You definitely have to stay on top of the water. You definitely have to amend the soil with manure or composted manure. It needs that heavy feed down here. This is a Thryallis I specifically pulled this one instead of some of the other green ones that are out there because I wanted to show you the fall color, even though we're in the winter. It's gorgeous. One of the things the northerners have to realize down here, fall color comes this time of the year and not actually in the fall. So if you look at our maple trees right now, they look gorgeous, scarlet oranges and reds. It's beautiful, but this just gives you some different color at different times of year. Thryallis, Thryalallis. It's a taller shrub. It can get up to 6 feet tall. Actually, it can get up to 15 feet tall. You can keep it easily at 6 foot. Okay, it's not a short one. Panama rose. It's not a rose in the traditional sense. It doesn't have thorns, which is why we get along very, very well. I love roses. Roses, the only rose that will do well in Florida is called the knockout rose or drift rose. But the drift rose down here is different from the drift roses up north. It's a different cultivar on them. This is beautiful because it pretty much flowers all year long. The butterflies love it. The hummingbirds love it. It is stunning. I've seen them get 6 feet tall by wide. Typically, I keep them about 3 foot. And the way that I do that is once a year, it's called rejuvenation pruning, where you cut it back hard down to 3 to 4 inches. You can cut it down to 6, but it encourages it to grow out nice and full and bushy again. Panama rose. Yes, you can. Yes, I forgot about that. Yeah. Yes. So you're not going to get any smell off of it during the day, but right around dusk, it has the most incredible scent on it. I did not bring in. Is there a night blooming jasmine out there? I thought I grabbed one.
Yes. There's another wonderful night blooming fragrance. Yes.
Excuse me for reaching across you. Okay. I pulled this one also, forgot to bring it in here. This is night blooming jasmine. This is a taller species of the jasmine. It comes by its name, honestly, because right around dusk, the flowers actually open at dusk. The scent is insanely beautiful. I mean, it is definitely worthwhile putting near a pool enclosure, by your doors, by a pathway, somewhere by a window, not directly in front of a window, but where you're going to get that scent to come in through.
When does it bloom?
At night. Oh, time of year? Right around spring through fall, right? Yeah. Yes. So the great thing about Florida is most of the plants will sporadically bloom all year round. It does have a heavier bloom time, and this one is spring through fall. Yes.
What's the best time of year to cut the Panama rose sap down?
So I give a pruning seminar. In fact, you can actually go on to the YouTube channel for Busy Bee, and I did a pruning seminar. I don't know when I did that. May, something like that. You can definitely go on and watch that. But typically in Florida, last 2 weeks of March, first 2 weeks of April is when you do all your rejuvenation pruning. You don't want to prune beyond that, before that, because then we get into a cold snaps possibility. When you cut something down, especially end of January, early February, and we get that cold snap, and it's coming. Every year it comes. Even if it's for a week, we're going to get that potentially mid 30s to low 40s at night. You don't want to let your plants suffer, and because when they push out new growth, they get nothing to protect it. It hasn't hardened enough, which means that you're probably going to lose your plant. Okay. You also have to realize that all of these plants are actual deciduous plants. Just like up north, there is the potential if we get a hard cold snap, and if it extends for several days, there is a possibility that your plants are going to drop all their leaves. They're going to lose their color. They're going to turn, if they get a fall color, they may turn yellow, drop all their leaves. Please don't go in a panic and call Ben at Busy Bee and say, oh my goodness, my plant's dying. What is happening? They are truly deciduous plants. They drop them, then they'll push out new buds. If you go up to your plant and you can snap the branch on it, unfortunately, yes, it's died. But if there's any kind of flexibility, if you're gentle to it, it means it's still green, and just give it time. It may be weeks before you see new buds push out, but give it time, let it recover, okay? What else do we have? Chrysandra. I like this plant. A lot of people use this as an annual, but it is gorgeous to use as a perennial. It is a perennial. It's classified as a shrub. It can get up to 3 feet tall. Full sun to light shade. You can push it into darker shade, but again, like usually, you're going to lose the flowers on it. Tracks the butterflies, very low care, low maintenance. It's a beautiful, beautiful plant. There are other colors of the Chrysandra. Yes. Okay. There we go. So I want to touch on some ground cover, lower plants. Some of them you may recognize, some of them you may not, and that's why I'm bringing them to your attention. The Gaillardias. This is a native to Florida. They are beautiful. They are an annual, but they're a self-seeding annual, which means once this plant dies or flowers, let it go to seed. Don't cut those seeds off. Let them drop into the ground around, and it's not going to take over. It's not an invasive plant, but it'll self-seed and another plant will grow up right beside it. Sometimes they die right down to the ground and then you can cut them off and let the new plants come up, but it is gorgeous as a native butterfly attractor in your garden. Gaillardia, Gaillardia. Testing my spelling. This is another one. This is the dwarf form of this guy. It is a ground cover Tibicina, but the common name is Spanish shawl. Spanish shawl is so underused and it is so beautiful. It is a little bit aggressive. It is not going to run through and take over your entire garden, but it does like to wander. It's easily controlled, but these are actually just finishing. You can start to see some of the flowers coming out. Miniature version of those flowers. A little bit lighter purple, more like a more reddish purple. Beautiful, beautiful ground cover plant. Don't just put one of them in. Put them in as a mass planting. These mixed with the lily of the Nile, that strap like with the spherical flower on the top, is a gorgeous, gorgeous planting. 5. You can do 3. If you've got a small area, you can do 3. Always plant in odd numbers, please. Everything in nature is actually based off all odd numbers. When you put things, and I did this specifically over here with some of them, how it has the 4 Dianellas in the front, that honest to God would drive me bonkers driving or walking up to a garden and seeing that. I can't stand even numbers on things. If you want your specimen, put your 1 in. Small grouping is 3, mid-size is 5, pushing larger 7 to 67 if you have the space. So think of odd numbers when you are doing your planting and give them the space to grow. Okay, I had one more. This is, losing my plant. This is beach sunflower, dune sunflower. It doesn't look like a whole lot right now, but it is a sunflower flower. It mounds up to about 2-ish feet, 3-ish feet on a good day. You can plant this in the direct sand on the beach and it will thrive. It does not like wet feet at all. It will tolerate a little bit if we have heavy rains. It does not like heavy soil, so you definitely need to lighten it up. But if you plant it in pure sand without amending the soil at all, it'll do phenomenal for you. And it is very low care. You basically have to do nothing to it ever and it will thrive. Okay? It is a native. Yep. One more. How many know the plant Cotoneaster from up north? I love Cotoneasters. I don't know what the common name is on them. This is a plant that mimics Cotoneaster, and there's actually a couple others out there. Carmona is one of them. This is a snow rose. Sarissa is the botanical name, but snow rose. It gets little small white flowers on it, and it just has those arching branches like a Cotoneaster. Great lower growing shrub. Awesome contrast, because if you look at this compared to the Musienda, look what happens when you contrast coarser textures with finer textures. It really brings the focus to both plants instead of it all being the same. Plain Jane, same. These are all considered coarse textures. You really can't look at one and see a definition between them. Whereas when you plant finer textures with coarser, it puts the beauty on all your plants. Okay? Don't be afraid to use annuals in pockets. Gomphrena is beautiful. This is actually can be a perennial down here with a little bit of care to it. These dry like this. You can clip off the stems and hang them upside down and they keep that color without any care. The Agastache and salvias, there's salvias down here. These are awesome perennials down here. The Agastache can be cut back and it'll bloom back out or shoot back out again. Some salvias are perennial down here. Not all of them are. The Mystic Spires. Mystic Spires is a good one. The other one that I love to use is called Black and Blue. Black and Blue is it's even darker than this in color. It is stunning and is very low care. Perennial, lasts all year. Okay. Yeah, they will not take shade. They'll take light shade or dappled shade, but definitely more sun they get, the better they do. Okay. Your Ixoras, I tend not to use them in my designs, not because I don't like them. They're just so overused. I like to use the Arboricolas once in a while in my designs, again, because they're so overused, but I'll use them as an accent plant instead of a hedge or a grouping of plants. They look absolutely gorgeous when you put one on their own mixed in with something else.